If I've learned anything from the terrible ambitions of my would-be lovers, it's that sometimes what appears hidden is actually in front of you the entire time. The same thing is true for guitar, all right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about two common keys, key of C and the people's key, the key of G, and how you can do some really interesting things using just open strings on your guitar, all right? So the whole crux of this lesson is that the highest three strings, G, B, and E, are a chord, an E minor chord, right? And aside from them just being a chord by itself, they really complement other chords, putting this chord on top of another chord. For instance, my favorite chord, one of my favorite chords ever, C major 7. It's really just third fret on the E string, third fret on the A string, second fret on the D string, and then open all the way up. So really we have a C major chord with an E minor chord on top. Combined, they become C major 7, okay? Now that's just one example of something that we could do through any chord in the key of C or even the key of G, which will be our two examples for today, because the notes G, B, and E are actually in each of these keys, okay? So we're gonna go through all the chords in the key of C, and then we're gonna do all the chords in the key of G, and talk about how we can utilize these open strings to our advantage. This video is sponsored by Sweetwater, specifically Luna with this Parlor guitar. I did an unboxing of this with my friend Kier. We did a cool performance I'm gonna link you to. But this is a really cool guitar, has electronics, built-in tuner, looks great, Parlor sized, and you're gonna hear it the entire lesson. It's super inexpensive, so there's gonna be an affiliate link in the description. Check it out. So we're gonna do this in order, right? Here's our C major chord. C major 7 chord. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through the chord scale, which means we're gonna play the 7 main chords in the key of C, and they're either major or minor, pretty much with one exception, and we're gonna go up the neck. So it's gonna sound like this. Okay? Those are gonna be our first 6 examples right here. All right, so a lot of cool creative stuff gets unlocked with this, but basically it's just 2 shapes. This is gonna be our major shape, where we have the root note is actually on the A string. All right, so my pinky is holding down the 3rd fret of the A string. There's our C. The 5th of this chord is gonna be right below it, but my ring finger is grabbing it. And then the 3rd of the chord is gonna be my middle finger, all right? So, little music theory, we have a 1, a 3, and a 5. That basically is what gives you a major chord. The only difference between major and minor is a minor chord has a flat 3. Okay, so if this is C major, 3, 3, 2, this is gonna be the 2 chord in the key of C. C is 1, D is 2, right? So now my root note is D, the 5th fret on the A string. The 5th is gonna be the same, but now see I've flattened that 3rd. I've just gone 1 fret back. So now it's 5, 5, 3. So there's a D minor chord, all right? Maybe you didn't even know that, but this is a cool replacement for a D minor chord you can always use. But with this E minor on top of it, the mystery of that chord, right? The ne'er-do-well ambitions come out. It was only a matter of time. I was on you the entire time. You do the same thing for the E minor chords. Now it's 7. Okay, now E minor is interesting because we have the E minor on top and the E minor on bottom. So this is really just an interesting way to play an E minor triad. Right, here's the regular E minor. Same chord, right? I actually like playing it like this to get that open low E string. So now we have 3 chords in the key of C. All right. Now we can call these different names. I'm just calling these regular major and minor chords with a little bit of spice on top. All right, like I said, this is a C major 7, so on and so forth. This is just an E minor triad. All of these technically will have different names because we're adding an E, a G, and a B on top of them, but it's not about the name of it, it's about the spice and the sound of it. So right now with 3 chords, or let's just take a regular progression going C major, E minor, D minor. Traditionally, C, E, D minor. Sounds great, but now we can kind of adds a lot, especially when you kind of jump from the bottom of the chord to the top. And again, I'm not even doing really anything that special. I'm just kind of aiming for the low part, the middle part, and then the top part. And it sounds like I'm playing something mysterious and musically educated. I'm really not. It's just a D minor chord and an E minor chord combined. Let's go into the F. This might be my actual favorite one. I'm always such a sucker for the 4 chord. Again, so now the 8th fret on the A string is our F. But I'm using the C major shape. It's just, remember, major, minor, minor, major. And again, look at how my hand is doing this. I'm really just taking the same form, and then I'm just replacing my middle finger with my pointer finger if I'm going back for the minor chords. And then my middle finger drops for the F and the G. Right? Which is, again, just the 8th fret and the 10th fret. So, 1 chord, 2, D minor, 3, E minor, 4, F major, 5, G major, 6 is A minor, back to C, okay? So, really fun and interesting way to do it, and then you can start numbering those progressions as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Remember, get that under your fingers. Major, minor, minor, major, major, minor. Anybody can do this. It's 2 shapes. I'm barely moving the composition of my hand as I go back and just track those root notes on the A string. Also, like, how good does this sound? This is so cool. I'm such a sucker for binding. I'm just a huge parlor pal. Because there's something about the size of a parlor that makes me just want to pick it up. I feel like, I grab the dreadnoughts when it's like business time, but if it's leisure time, like, give me the parlors all day, every day. They just feel so good and just kind of sitting down and playing with, right? Perfect size for guitar. Shout out to Sweetwater and Luna for sending this over. Like I said, fill it link in that description. But super easy just to do that. So let's say I want to do just a 1-4-5 C F G. You played C, F G, C, F G, C, F G, G, F. I mean, it just sounds classier in my estimation. All right, that's all just the key of C. How about we get into the people's key, the key of G, right? So now let's track all of these chords on the low E string as the root, okay? Now, essentially the same thing can apply. We could actually even go one step further and then just keep that D string open the entire time now, right? So we'll do a couple different ways to do this. Let's start with the same thing where it's just a root note and it's third, okay? So it's essentially the same thing we just did, but just move it a string lower. So now we have a G, 3rd fret on the E string, and it's major 3rd, a B, 2nd fret. Okay? Let's do the same thing. Let's track through the entire chord scale and talk about how this is different, right? So again, we've got G major, open all the way down. A minor, root note minor 3rd, open all the way down. B minor, open all the way down. C major, open all the way down. D major, open all the way down. E minor, and then we can go F sharp, which would technically be minor 7 flat 5, back. Now this is where I kind of like to add one more note in the shape, just because there's something about having all of these, which I guess would be like an E minor 7 or something like that, if you want to name just the bottom 4 strings all at once. This almost can sound a little too messy. The open strings, I think, are dominating this sound a little bit more. One way to do it is just kind of just hop from the low to the top ones and maybe avoid that, or we can add what we know a little bit about music theory by extending the chord to a 7th to flesh out the chords a little bit more, all right? So what I mean by that is I know that G major 7 is a chord in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the major 7th right here. So now I've got 3 E, 2 A, 4 G, or 4 D, right? And where that comes is this is just the 7th note of the G major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now it's like, all right, I can use this on the 1 and the 4 chords. That's how music theory works. Check out the Patreon if you want to learn more about the music theory of it. But this works here and here. So the G chord and the C chord. And I think that's a really nice sound. And the only thing that's different for the other major chord, again, for the D here, the 5 chord, we can't technically go major 7 while staying in the key, so we're just going to flatten that and get that dominant 7 chord, where it's just 10A, or 10E, 9A, 10D. Okay, so those are our major chords now. 1, 4, 5. Now the minor chords are really simple. We can do the exact same thing as we just did in that D7 shape, flattening the 3rd, right? Remember, the difference between a major chord and a minor chord is this: you flatten the 3rd. So if I want to do a minor 7 chord, I just do this: 5E, 2A, 3A, 5D, and then I can leave that top open again. Now I can do this for all of my minor chords, right? What we have root note, a minor 3rd, and a minor 7, okay? There's no 5th in this chord. Like, remember when we were doing the D and the E minor, on the A string rooted ones, we have the root note, the 5th, and the minor 3rd. How this is important is gonna come into play in that 7th chord. You'll see in just a second. But there's our A minor 7-ish shape, B, and E. F sharp. So it's almost like we add a minor chord by not having the 5th in there, because if we were on this F sharp, this is where we'd have a minor 7 flat 5 chord, or like a half diminished chord that you can do here. But if you use this trick, you can treat it pretty much as a minor 7 chord, okay, with this kind of 3-note little hack here. So now, if we go through all the chords, the chord scale using this method, we end up with G major 7 chord, the 1 chord looking like this. And I want to take a second here just to talk about the fingering here. I've got middle finger, pointer finger, pinky. Now when I go to the minor chord, I'm going to drop my ring finger, right? So again, major 7, minor. Again, once you start getting the correct forms, or maybe the most efficient forms, everything becomes a lot easier to play. So that's why I'm going to start with my middle finger leading the way for the G, A minor, B minor. There's the 4 chord. Now I'm back into middle finger. Oh, there's the 5 chord. Now I can go back to a regular minor, F sharp, minor 7 flat 5, and then I can end, and then just kind of jump around. 1, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. I can actually add some of the stuff on the A string, right? Let's go to that E minor on the A string, to the C on the A string, back to 1. Those chords work interchangeably in any key, in these 2 keys. So good. I love how that sounds with those open strings on top. It just kind of glues together the sound. So again, it might not work for everything that you're doing, but I think it's a really cool kind of tool that you could use to just try different things out. If you don't like how open it sounds, feel free to palm mute it. I'm just kind of chopping down so I don't hear that chimey top. so still gives it a different sound. So if anything, it's just kind of like a different tool to use chords that you already know, that I'm sure you know a bunch of songs in these keys. And it's just gonna sound good. So thank you to Sweetwater and Luna for sending over this incredible parlor guitar. Hit that affiliate link because we want to be parlor pals, guys. Be a parlor pal with me. So check it out. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comment section of the website. I'll talk to y'all soon.